Hello everyone, this is Martin with My IELTS Tutor. I want to thank you for joining me today. Today we're going to talk about some tips. Yes, right, I'm going to give you some tips. Give you some tips to boost you from a Band 6 letter to a Band 8 letter. And if you follow these tips, you're more than likely to get that Band 8. So let's begin. Now, our first considerations are these. First of all, you want to read the letter topic. You want to understand the tone, informal, semi-formal, and formal. And we talked about this in the last lesson. And then you want to understand the purpose. Is it an invitation, apology, request, and so on. Then you want to read the bullet points that come with the topic. Those are important. And the reason why is you must include those bullet points in your letter. If you don't, you will have a reduction in your task achievement score. And then you want to how to plan your letter. And I'm going to talk about that. So let's continue. Now you have 20 minutes. 20 minutes to complete this task from beginning to end. So planning is key. That's right, planning's key. So what you want to do is you want to take 3 to 4 minutes to plan and save 2 minutes at the end to correct any mistakes. It's important that you spend time correcting your errors. And IELTS does expect that you do spend some time editing your work. So save 2 minutes at the end and to do this, and take up 3 to 4 minutes for planning. And this will give you, if we have 3 minutes for planning, 2 minutes for editing, this gives you about 15 minutes to write. And that should be sufficient time to write the letter. So, but what you want to do in your planning is this. You want to ensure in your planning that you will cover all the points given. You will add appropriate details. You will use the correct style of writing your letter. And what I mean by style, you need to use the correct tone of writing in your letter. And then plan your paragraphs accordingly. Do this by making sure that you read the instructions. And the above considerations make up 50% of your score for this assignment. So this is crucial. It makes up 50% of your score. Again, follow these points. Now, when we talk about planning, there are basically 9 steps for planning. First, you want to read the instructions. Then you want to identify the tone required, formal, semi-formal, and informal. Then you want to read the points given with the instructions. And then you want to consider how many paragraphs you will write. And usually, as a good rule of thumb, 1 paragraph for 1 point. Then you want to consider the details you will include for each point. Next, you want to consider how you open the letter. For example, this is indicated by the style and purpose of the letter. And this I covered in the previous lesson, and if you've forgotten, I really recommend that you take a look at that previous lesson. Then you want to consider grammar and vocabulary to use, informal or formal. And then consider an appropriate closing, again, one that matches the tone. And then you start writing. Then you want to, and as I talked about, save time for editing at the end. Leave 2 minutes at the end for the task. This will allow you to correct mistakes in grammar, punctuation, spelling, vocabulary, and word phrasing. And I recommend that you write with the pencil. This way you can erase any mistakes you make. And I would maybe write a little bit on the lighter side, so that if you write too heavily, you can tend to end up you tend to smudge up the paper. So don't write too hard. That way you can easily write the mistakes and you don't get too much of smudging. 2 minutes to plan at the beginning, and I said at the beginning I said 3 to 4 minutes, but if you can do this in 2 minutes, and you can, it takes practice. It takes practice, but you can do this. And take 2 minutes to edit at the end, you'll have 16 minutes to write, and you can do that with that amount of time. So, but the key point here is use your time wisely. Use your time wisely so you can get the task done in time. Now, one thing you want to consider for this is vocabulary to use. So for formal letters, you want to use formal academic speech. You want to use the type of words, type of language, type of style that you would use for an essay. Now, for informal, use informal speech, but try to avoid slang. And the reason why I say avoid slang is most oftenly used in only one area only, such as, like, for instance, there are words here in Indian English that are used nowhere else, and so a person who may live in the U.S. or Canada may not understand the slang. So try to avoid slang. Now, I have some examples here in terms of informal and formal speech. For example, we'll pick you up at the train station. Whereas in formal speech, Robert will collect you at the airport. Let's get together on Sunday. The next available appointment is on. And then, I'm free tomorrow. Feel free to come by. For formal, I would like to invite you to a tour of the office. So, remember, for vocabulary use, formal is always academic speech, as if you're writing an essay. Informal and semi-formal is informal speech. Now, there are grammar considerations. First of all, spelling and punctuation. You should be accurate in spelling and punctuation. You don't want to have too many errors in this regard. Hopefully, you have no errors. So you want to use full stops correctly and commas correctly, even semicolons. And then, of course, correct spelling. Then you want to structure your paragraphs. And so we're going to talk about organizing your letter. So we want to organize your letter into paragraphs. So a good structure looks like this. It has an opening, a greeting, an opening statement, which is an underlying reason, and that's your first paragraph. Then you have your body paragraph 1. That would be, let's say, the first bullet point, and it will include details. Body paragraph 2, the second bullet point with details. Body paragraph 3, final point with details, and then your closing statement. And then you must end with a name. That's also very important. You can write down your own name or an imaginary one. You can make one up. So then, now, grammar. We want to consider grammar. I touched on this again last lesson, but I'm going to mention it again as well because it's an important 8-man tip. For grammar, formal letters do not use contractions such as I cannot. So what it would use would say I cannot, she would not, things like and things like that. Informal informal and semi-formal do make use of contractions, so you can say she can't, I won't, it's very unlikely, those type of things. So now there are other considerations too. All right, You want to write more than 150 words. If you write under 150 words, chances are your score will be lower than what you would hope for. Now, a good range is 160 to 225 words. Now, there is no maximum limit, but you don't want to write too much. First of all, you don't have a lot of time. Second of all, you'll probably start going off topic a lot. So you want to stay on topic and you want your letter to be focused. You want to be mindful, and I've covered these: grammar, vocabulary, punctuation, spelling. Next, when it comes to the bullet points and their details, you have to come up with the details. You have to decide what details to add for each bullet point. And so you will need to use your imagination to fill those in. And each bullet point, again, should have its own paragraph. Then grammar and vocabulary must match the tone. Again, it must match the tone. And then you must sign off that your sign-off must be appropriate to tone and purpose. And again, I touched on that in the last lesson, and you should review that lesson if you've forgotten. Then you must include your name or a made-up name at the end. And then be sure to plan your letter within the first 2 to 3 minutes, and then save 2 minutes at the end to edit. So that's it for today's lesson. I want to thank you guys for joining me today. Remember these tips. These tips will boost you up to 8 bands or even higher. You should really shoot for as high as you can get. So again, that's it for today. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you next time. Thank you.